Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we are taking a deep dive into the source material to completely demystify the saltwater tank setup process. If you've ever looked at a stunning, vibrant marine aquarium and thought, wow, I could never do that, it's way too complicated, well, you're in the exact right place. We're going to break down exactly how to get started, and honestly, if there is just one golden rule you take away from our time together today, it's this: prioritize stability over speed. Building a marine system is a lot less about rushing to add beautiful fish, and so much more about establishing delicate balances of salinity, temperature, and chemistry. Here's the architect's blueprint we're following today: the foundation, the hardware, the invisible magic, moving day, long-term success, and finally, avoiding pitfalls. Let's just jump right in. All right, part one, the foundation, setting expectations and size. Okay, this brings us to the very first major myth of the aquarium hobby. Beginners almost always gravitate toward a tiny nano tank, right? I get it, it seems way less intimidating and maybe a bit cheaper. But here's the thing the experts point out. A small tank actually means highly volatile chemistry. When things go wrong in a tiny bowl of water, they go wrong incredibly fast. So the expert recommendation? Start moderate. More water literally gives you more stability to buffer against those inevitable beginner mistakes. So what does moderate actually mean? Well, the sweet spot is right between 40 and 60 gallons. That's roughly 150 to 225 liters for those using metric. This specific range is highly recommended because it gives you that crucial water stability we just talked about, but it's still entirely manageable when it comes to your weekly maintenance routines. It's kind of the perfect beginner footprint. Moving right along to section 2, the hardware, your starter checklist. When pulling together your gear, there are a few absolute essentials you need beyond just the tank and the stand. First, you're going to need a high-quality marine-rated salt mix. And to measure that salt, you absolutely must have a refractometer or a hydrometer. Accuracy here is, frankly, life or death for marine animals. You'll also need a heater with a reliable thermostat and some sort of circulation system, like a power head or a return pump, just to keep that water moving. Then there's the heavy-duty filtration, so a protein skimmer or a marine-specific filter to pull out all those dissolved organics. Oh, and definitely don't forget a lid or cover. As we'll see in a minute, controlling evaporation is a massive part of making this whole thing work. Now, you might be thinking, wait, where's the lighting? Notice it wasn't on that core life support list. That's because lighting needs vary wildly. Unless you're planning to grow highly demanding corals right out of the gate, which honestly is pretty tough for a beginner, you should stick to a fish-first or soft coral setup. This route is significantly more forgiving. You can start with a basic lighting setup, save yourself some money, and really master your water chemistry before upgrading to a high-demand reef build down the road. Which brings us to section 3, the invisible magic, the crucial cycling phase. We have reached the absolute climax of the preparation phase. Once the tank is assembled, filled, and heated, it is time for cycling. Cycling is basically this invisible biological process that establishes beneficial bacteria in your tank. Without this good bacteria, the waste produced by your future fish will quite literally poison them. This bacterial colony, it is the true engine of your aquarium. So here's how that chemical progression actually plays out. When organic matter breaks down, it creates step 1, toxic ammonia. Not good. But as your tank cycles, a specific type of bacteria starts to grow that actually eats that ammonia and turns it into step 2, nitrite. Now, nitrite is also toxic. But then a second type of bacteria steps in, consuming the nitrite and converting it into step 3, nitrate. Nitrate is much less harmful, and you can easily manage it with routine water changes. During this whole waiting period, you're going to be testing your water regularly, watching these spikes happen, and just waiting for both ammonia and nitrite to fall completely back down to zero. And hey, during this cycling phase, and honestly, forever after, you have to follow the top-off rule. Water is going to evaporate from your tank, but salt does not evaporate. It stays right there. That means as the water level drops, the remaining water gets saltier and saltier. To fix this, you always top off your tank with fresh water, specifically RODI or properly dechlorinated water, just to maintain that consistent, stable salinity. Next up is section 4, moving day, choosing your first inhabitants. So you might be wondering, once the tank is wet and running, can I just start dropping in my favorite fish? I mean, we all want to see that vibrant life in our living room as soon as possible, right? Well, hold your seahorses. The source material is incredibly adamant about this rule. Resist the urge to add livestock early. Seriously, Even a short delay without a complete cycle exposes animals to really dangerous conditions, and you absolutely cannot guess by looking at the calendar. Every single tank cycles at its own unique pace. You have to let your water tests definitively dictate when it's safe to proceed. Only when ammonia and nitrite are consistently sitting at 0 is it actually time. When those tests finally give you the green light, follow these specific guidelines. Start with hardy, resilient choices, and introduce them gradually. Please do not buy 10 fish all at once. Select fewer species first to allow time for that biological filter, those bacteria we talked about, to adjust to the new waste load. And this is a big one. Do your homework. Even friendly-looking fish can compete aggressively, and some grow way beyond what looks appropriate when they're just tiny juveniles at the pet store. Always, always research an animal's adult size, temperament, and swimming space needs before bringing it home. Calm, compatible community picks are definitely your best bet. All right, let's look at Section 5, Long-Term Success, Feeding and Routine Maintenance. There is such a fascinating contrast between beginner instincts and expert practices here. Notice how beginners naturally want to overfeed? We think we're helping, but it just increases waste and ruins water quality. The expert practice is to feed small amounts and actually observe the fish eating it. And when it comes to cleaning, beginners usually want a perfectly sterile tank, so they overscrub everything. But experts know not to overscrub those surfaces, because that is exactly where your beneficial bacteria live. You'll also want to establish a really consistent periodic schedule for water changes. Oh, and if you're using a protein skimmer, definitely take the time to learn how to dial it in properly. An underperforming skimmer is just going to leave dangerous dissolved organics floating in your water. Finally, Section 6, Avoiding Common Beginner Pitfalls. Think of these mistakes as your personal cheat sheet. First, skipping the cycle. Guaranteed disaster. Don't do it. Chasing numbers too aggressively, like trying to perfectly adjust your chemistry every single day, usually causes way more instability than it solves. We already know that adding animals too quickly completely overwhelms the filter. But you also need to watch out for inaccurate salinity measurements. Make sure that refractometer is properly calibrated. Lastly, never treat salt water as one fixed universal recipe. Your specific salt mix, your local tap water source, your top-off methods, they all influence your unique results. Start simple and only scale up when your routine is absolutely rock solid. So, as we wrap up this explainer, ask yourself, will you prioritize stability over speed? Building a saltwater tank is a long-term commitment. It definitely demands patience. But listen, if you respect the biological processes we covered today, you won't just be keeping fish alive. You'll be cultivating a breathtaking, living ocean ecosystem right there in your living room. So what kind of world will you build? Thanks so much for joining me today, and happy reefing.